Well, hi there. Warm welcome. You're watching Blueprint Explosive Exclusive with me, Meghna Deka. Well, let's first up take you across to Bengal, where the nomination process for the Bengal Panchayat polls have been marred with bloody violence. At least 7 lives have been cut short on record, and in the cycle of violence that has triggered right during the filing of the nomination process. It has, for this very reason, that the High Court ordered the deployment of the central forces across the state for Panchayat polls, but the Mamata government has been calling it an interference to get the message from the Supreme Court now. In fact, the Supreme Court made it very clear that elections cannot be a license for violence, as it calls it, and says that it has going to decide to rather dismiss Mamata Banerjee's government's plea challenging the High Court order. In fact, the government had asserted that 98% of the state had been peaceful ever since the filing of nominations. In fact, the apex court had reminded the state of its violent history when it comes to polls. The direct message is that holding elections can't be a license for violence. Now, this has again triggered a war of words between the ruling dispensation and the principal opposition in the state. The BJP says that the Supreme Court is dismissing the state government's plea is nothing but a tight slap on the state Sarkar's face. Now, the TMC claims that the deployment of the central forces will not serve any purpose.
क्या राय है आपका? सुप्रीम कोर्ट जो हाई कोर्ट का जो राय था वही बहाल रखा, इसके बारे में आपके क्या बताया?
देखिए, सुप्रीम कोर्ट का ये जो राय आया है, भार्डिक्ट आया है, हम इसकी वेलकम करते हैं, सराहना करते हैं। और एक दिन पहले ही मैंने बोला था कि ममता बनर्जी ने एक थप्पड़ अपने एक गाल में खाया कलकत्ता हाई कोर्ट से, दूसरा थप्पड़ दूसरा गाल में सुप्रीम कोर्ट से उनको मिलेगा, और वो मिला है आज। इसके लिए उनको मुबारकबाद। आज पश्चिम बंगाल डे भी है, वेस्ट बंगाल डे है, इसके लिए उनको मुबारकबाद मैं देता हूँ।
Supreme Court is the highest court of the land. Their order will prevail. So let central forces be deployed. It would make no difference to us. Though we felt that the central forces would not be able to do justice because they don't understand the local language. We have also the bitter experience of last assembly election when central forces shot dead 4 persons in Shitolkuchi, Kuch Bihar. But since the order has been given, we shall abide by it, and it will make no difference to the election results. Trinamool Congress is going to win the elections hands down.
ना, तृणमूल कांग्रेस का इसमें कोई फर्क नहीं आता है। देखिए, तृणमूल कांग्रेस का केस ये नहीं था। ये इलेक्शन कमीशन जो लोग का ऊपर जिम्मेदारी है, स्टेट इलेक्शन कमीशन का केस था। तृणमूल कांग्रेस के लिए चाहे सेंट्रल फोर्स हो, चाहे स्टेट का फोर्स हो, चाहे दूसरा स्टेट से फोर्स आए, कुछ फर्क नहीं होता है।
It is quite unbecoming of the State Election Commission to be in contempt of the Calcutta High Court and not requisition for central paramilitary forces despite a very clear order. The result is that a lot of people have lost their lives. There is violence, threat, intimidation. Entire Panchayat poll is now held to ransom by the TMC goons. Mamata Banerjee must realize that she cannot put the future of Bengal in peril. Unfortunately, Bengal is paying the price for electing a draconian government like hers.
Well, in fact, let's go across to our guest. Joining us today on the show, Gargi Nandi, a political analyst. Riju Dutta is also joining us, the national spokesperson of the TMC. Mr. Riju Dutta, I'm going to come to you first. Today, very categorically, the Supreme Court has said, and I'm going to quote the Supreme Court here, it says that after the spate of violence, just holding polls cannot be a license to violence. Is that not a massive rap on the knuckles, or perhaps, as the BJP would call it, a massive indictment of Mamata Banerjee personally as well, considering she is the Home Minister?
First of all, the Supreme Court has, in its wisdom, said this comment, but I will also, see, I cannot comment on the Supreme Court's comments, but I will also say, where in a state like Tripura, where during the Panchayat polls, there were 96% seats which were uncontested, where in Uttar Pradesh, there were more than 42% seats uncontested, where there were rampant violence, the elections were held by the state police. So at that time, was there license for violence? I don't know. But
Riju Dutta, 7 people have died so far ahead of the Panchayat polls. Are you saying there isn't enough violence?
I will categorically give you the numbers. In 2018, in Bengal, in the Trinamool Congress regime, there was 34% seats uncontested. Now in 2023, there is only 3% uncontested seat. In Zilla Parishad, there is 100% nomination, and the opposition parties have filed more nominations than the ruling disposition in Bengal. So that shows that it's a work in progress. The law and order is controlling.
No, but Riju Dutta, I'm sorry. I asked you a different question. You didn't answer my question. That's why I'm being forced to interrupt you. I asked you about the 7 deaths. You are pointing to the nominations filed by the opposition. We have seen bags full of bombs being recovered. We've seen 7 lives which have been cut short because of the political violence.
No.
You are showing us opposition's nomination record.
What I tried to say is, because see, Meghna, with all due respect, you don't know the history of Bengal Panchayat election. What was there in the
Supreme Court does,
time and what was there in the past. So that is why I was giving you the numbers. But coming to the 7 dead, out of the 7 dead, 4 of them are unfortunately TMC cadres. So and there is violence in 2-3 parts of Bengal, which is playing on loop on every national TV, that same bite, and the state of West Bengal is being maligned, that there is violence all throughout. Out of the 7 dead, 4 are TMC cadres. There is not a single person dead from BJP, not a single person dead from Congress.
Okay.
And if the opposition thinks every death which will happen, fortunately and unfortunately for natural causes also, they will put it on the head of TMC. That is very cheap and low level of politics.
Well, it's not cheap and low level politics when the Supreme Court says certain things. Let's not forget, the Supreme Court in its wisdom has talked about the bloody political history and the history of bloodshed in Bengal in the past. Gargi Nandi Roy, do you agree the statistics that TMC today shows that opposition leaders have been free and the numbers aren't really as big as the kind of numbers and the violence that you have seen in Manipur and in Uttar Pradesh? Those are the comparisons.
To do a comparative study of violence, the violence that used to happen in the left era, and now Riju has been doing that. How many people were killed in Manipur or Tripura? But one thing is true, that only the state of West Bengal makes it to the headlines because of political violence. Riju accepts it, and here is a government which terrorizes people. Why is violence used? To terrorize the opposition. Today also, people are threatened to withdraw their nomination. In Murshidabad today also, poster has been put outside a Congress candidate's house to withdraw his nomination. They are threatened.
But there are more nominations by the opposition parties now than it was there earlier.
One thing, Meghna, I want to say one thing, because just before we came, Govt said that no difference will be made by the central forces. I think there the TMC is right, because what happens, central forces will be there on the day of the election. But before that, TMC goons will make rounds of houses on their bikes, threatening people not to come out on the election day.
Those are big charges. Those are big charges. Is that true? Riju Dutta, your opposition is saying that TMC is trying to terrorize its political rivals.
I'm saying categorically on a national television and national platform like this, that if TMC is terrorizing, if TMC is harassing, if TMC is creating all this violence, then none of the BJP Karyakartas have lost their lives. Thank God, but Trinamool Karyakartas have lost their lives. 4 TMC people have lost their lives. And if TMC is harassing and TMC is terrorizing, then out of 72,000 seats, BJP has filed 50,000 nomination, CPM 50,000 nomination, Congress 17,000 nomination, and Trinamool Congress 80,000 nomination. That means
Gargi Nandi Roy, answer that.
Opposition collective.
It is the BJP responsible, not the TMC. Gargi Nandi Roy, answer.
Yes. Riju, when you start a violence, when you create Frankensteins, that come back to us, you also. Because it's natural. If you do violence, it will be retaliated. Do we...
so you are accepting that there is retaliatory violence?
No, I don't think retaliation. If people are attacked, they will be defending themselves, right? But Mamata Banerjee is the Home Minister. So isn't she responsible for the law and order? Any violence happening, any bombs being found, the Bengal has become a cottage industry of bomb making. You have driven away industries So our cottage industry of bomb making is flourishing, Riju. This is a shame. This is a shame on Bengalis like us. Please. And
that's a valid point. Point by point. Riju Dutta, Mamata Banerjee being the Home Minister, TMC now can't come and say BJP is to blame for law and order deteriorating, violence happening. You have to let the buck stop. And that too, at the Home Minister of Bengal, at the Chief Minister of Bengal's doorstep, that happens to be Mamata Banerjee. You can't get away from that.
I'm not... 10 seconds, Riju,
Meghna,
10 seconds, give me.
Meghna.
Riju, 10 seconds. I want to say,
okay,
when
fine.
bombs were hurled in Bhangur, we have seen on television, the police is standing at a distance eating. And they are mute spectators and they are telling journalists that they cannot hear the sound of bombs. So Bengal police have become deaf or what?
Yes, we have the visuals of that. Bengal police comes under the Home Ministry of the state, led by the Chief Minister Riju Dutta. You must answer this.
After the Panchayat polls are declared and the model code of conduct in place, the law and order goes under the State Election Commission. Point number one. Point number two, in 2000...
Which then wants to block central forces.
In Bengal,
then accept that this has happened, violence has happened, let central forces come.
Can I finish?
Riju,
Can I
State
finish?
Election Commission is under the West Bengal state.
I am not going to go into a mudslinging match. Can I finish?
Riju, you are telling
I have not interrupted her.
Okay. Let Riju Dutta finish. The State Election Commission, it comes under the TMC Sarkar, is what Gargi Nandi is saying, which is why it's trying to block the central forces. Riju Dutta.
One second. I will give you an answer. I'll just give a history lesson to people like Gargi and the viewers who probably don't understand the history of Bengal Panchayat election. In 2003 Panchayat election, there were 82 dead. In 2018 Panchayat elections, there were 17 dead. I'm not counting dead bodies. But now, unfortunately, there is 7 dead and out of which 4 are TMC Karyakarta. Point number one. Point number two, central forces. We welcome the central forces. We welcome even if the court orders...
Then why are you blocking it?
To come.
Tell the Supreme Court, you want the central forces. Tell the Supreme Court that here are the list of sensitive areas because till date even that hasn't been given by the SEC. Has that been given?
You are, please, I'll tell you, I have great respect for your channel. You should do a little bit of homework. All the sensitive booths, which are in number 15,600, has been submitted by the State Election Commission. I'm giving you the number also. Now, let me come to the central forces, the question you have asked. The central forces conducted election in Bengal 1.5 years, barely 2 years ago, in 8 phases during the Vidhan Sabha. During peak COVID, what was the result? We went to Supreme Court. The state government went to Supreme Court because as per the federal structure, none of the states during Panchayat election, central forces has ever been deployed. That was a symbolic protest. But we welcome the central forces because we know even if
so that's very interesting. So TMC is still saying central forces coming in the Panchayat polls is going to really serve no justice to the people and ensure peace. However, the BJP all along has been saying that who's responsible then for this political violence that Bengal has been plunged into. However, we are running out of time. Thank you so much, Gargi Nandi Roy, for joining us, Riju Dutta of the TMC for being here on the show. With that, a short break. Don't go anywhere.